arrived, it was I had incredible anxiety. I remember coming off the plane, but there was no real time to think about it. You know, it was once we landed and the back of the Herc came down and we all walked off the plane. I remember us being really clean shaven, and all our cams were all very clean, and the guys hopping on the planes, they were obviously clean, but you could just tell they were rugged. They'd been through it all for the past 7 months or whatnot, and they were sort of looking at us like it was this exchange where they were sort of like, good luck, like see you later, and they were out of there. They were happy to be going, and we were happy to be coming. It was strange to think, like, why would they be happy they're leaving? You know, like this is awesome, this is our job. And obviously after 7 months or 8 months it takes its toll. It was surreal because all the intelligence that you get taught is, you know, they won't attack you or fight you while there's kids around, and the kids will be gone. There'll be no locals. They don't want to hurt locals because they want locals on their side, you know. So to see an IED go off in the middle of a field with families and kids and locals everywhere, it was sort of like, yeah, like you can't really take all that intelligence and say this is things change. Yeah.
And then I sort of came to, and I felt blood coming down from my face, and my arm had all blood. I didn't have my weapon anymore, and that's when I realised it was an IED and what had happened.
I was wounded 3 months into the deployment, and that was from an IED blast. I was about 4 meters from the IED itself. I had no idea it was there, obviously, but I was just standing there and looking out, and my section commander was behind me with the interpreter, and he was questioning a local, and the local was quite anxious, and we put it down to the local knew the bomb was there, but he couldn't tell us about it because then he would probably be killed by the Talib. But the local left, essentially he ran, and then as soon as he was gone, the bomb went off. It went from just standing there normal, everything was fine, to instantly there was dust everywhere. I couldn't see in front of me, and my ears. It was the way I explain what happened to me. It was like on Saving Private Ryan at the start, where the bomb goes off and he can't hear anything, and it's just sort of a whistle, and he's looking around dazed and whatnot. That's essentially what it felt like. I couldn't hear anything. It was like I had earmuffs on, and I was looking around thinking what's just happened, pretty confused, and then I realized I was no longer holding my weapon, and so I looked down to see where my weapon was, and there was just blood pouring down my arm, my right arm, and as my head looked down to look at my arm, blood poured out of my face as well, all over my body armor. And that's when I realized that I've been wounded, like a bomb has gone off and I'm wounded. And then it sort of, there was a period there where everyone was trying to get to me to start working on me. From that period, it was a short time. I think I collapsed after that, and then my mate came and dragged me to cover and started working on me. But there was a period where I realized I was wounded in action and blood was pouring out of all these different places. I realized that I could die, and it was the fear that am I about to die? And it was the worst fear I've ever felt, that I thought that I didn't want to die. And yeah, and I thought, okay, I've been hit in the arm, that's not too bad, and my face, that's not too bad. And I thought, I just wondered how many bits of shrapnel have gone into my chest or my abdomen, like in the important parts. And that was the biggest fear. And it wasn't until Ronnie was working on me, and he checked my whole body for other injuries, and then he said, no, you're all good, it's just your face and your arm, you're all good. And then it was like a big weight off my shoulders. I knew I was gonna live. I was like, okay, this is fine, I'm gonna live. And then from there, I actually felt fine. I didn't have any pain at all. He patched up my arm and gave me something for my face, and I put my body armor and my webbing and back on, and grabbed my rifle and patrolled back to the Platoon House where the LZ was, for the helicopter to come and pick me up. There was also the interpreter that was hit as well. He was about a few meters behind me. He was further away, but he got hit with a big piece of shrapnel, went past me and then into his backside actually. So he was also wounded, but he couldn't walk or anything, so he was stretchered out. I patrolled out, and we flew back to Tarankout, to the hospital there. That was actually my first helicopter ride, so that was pretty cool. I was pretty jacked about hopping on a helicopter, and I got to sit down and not lay down so I got to actually look out the windows and everything like that. But yeah, that was the closest call I came to death. Yeah. Well, when I was wounded, it was essentially, I thought about all the different bits of shrapnel and fragmentations that didn't hit any important organs, and it was, it's millimeters. It comes down to millimeters, whether you're alive or you're dead. So that sort of puts it in your mind that, is there a high power looking after you, or is it because you did this, or yeah, which probably wasn't. It was just where I was standing. I did feel quite a bit of stress. It was one of the things that I thought I'd be stressed about before I went over was trying to sleep in a foreign country, knowing that there's so many bad people around. But once you get over there, and especially when you're sleeping next to your mates, and you're all doing it together, it's a lot easier to deal with. One of the stresses that it wasn't as stressful until I was wounded. I went into Afghanistan with the mindset that, maybe we'll lose one dude in Afghanistan. We didn't want to lose anyone, but the likelihood we might lose one person in Afghanistan, and I thought the likelihood of it being me was very slim, until the day I was blown up, and then it made me realize that I very well could be the one that's going to die. So then post being wounded, I was the anxiety was much higher on every patrol. Not so much being shot at. I enjoyed hearing a gunshot, because I knew that there was someone at the other end of that rifle, and we could go after him and actually fight. But in regards to a bomb, sort of, it's fighting a ghost. There's no one there. They're just, they could have set the bomb up 2 days ago. They could be anywhere. And yeah, so essentially, it was always a fear of IEDs whilst I was over there. My mum bought me a St. Christopher necklace. I wore that every patrol, and yeah, I wore it on every patrol, and I made sure I wore it. I'm not a massively religious person, but it's one of those things where you start something and you don't want to stop it in case something happens, and it's just fear. But also, I also started reading the Bible when I was over there. I read a few pages. I thought it was quite gnarly, like some of the stuff that was in it, and yeah. And then I sort of felt like I needed to read a couple of pages every night. Yeah, and then and yeah, that was another thing that I started mid deployment. But like I said, I'm not really religious, but it's just like I said, it was fear. It was fear based. So I was a lead scout in my section, which is the guy up the front. And essentially, I carried my rifle with a scope and a rocket, which was a 66, just a small rocket launcher. Yeah, and my job was essentially you're the first eyes on things that you're patrolling towards. I did see combat, quite a bit of combat. Yeah, it's so being the lead scout, it doesn't always essentially mean it's the most dangerous position, because Taliban have been known to target certain parts of the patrol. So, and if there's an IED, I could walk straight past it, and then they could blow it up in the middle. It doesn't really essentially mean it's not like Vietnam where you're the first one to get shot. It's a bit different because you're out in the open field, and anyone can get shot at any time. So, in the platoon house, it got pretty rough. It was no showers, nothing. Like I said, there's no running water. You get pretty wild, and there was a lot of card games and everything. But how it was built, it was a house, but it had a mud brick wall around it. So we had a courtyard where we could play cards and work out and whatnot. And yeah, quite often the house would get rocketed, which were RPGs or shot, and it it was sort of the board game that was played quite a lot was Risk, but everyone got quite aggressive playing it, like really aggressive, and it was at these times where everyone was really aggressive, then a rocket would come over our house or explode at the wall, and everyone would just lose their minds because they're trying to play a game and these guys are still trying to attack them. There was no complete downtime. It was you're halfway through a workout and then you get shot at, the wall's shot. The way to deal with, I'll explain this, the way to deal with certain events overseas was with humour. And one of the events that I remember quite clearly, we kept being shot at. This is actually the day before I was wounded in action. The guy kept shooting at our house constantly, and a good friend of mine still, Daniel, he went to the toilet, but the toilet was in a separate building, so there was a gap of about 5 or 10 meters from our house to this other building with the bathroom in it. And he got halfway to the house to go to the toilet, and he had a couple of rounds land right at his feet, and he was already halfway, so he just legged it. And he got to the building, and obviously after that event, he no longer needed to go to the toilet. And we didn't know that he went over to the building. We just heard the shots ring out, so we stood to and got our gear on, and then we hear this voice yell out. He was yelling out to us to cover him because he needed to get back to our house, and the guy kept putting rounds down because he knew that, I'm assuming he knew Daniel was in the house with the toilet in it, and he couldn't get back for a little while because the shooter was still out there. But yeah, I thought that was quite funny. We were all laughing at him, and yeah, it's one of the things we to deal with certain situations, you use humour, I suppose. We were living in Platoon House Exchange. Obviously there's no running water. We had a toilet which was essentially a wooden box and a garbage bag in it, and everything was burned. So you put all the rubbish, anything was in the burn pile and diesel, and it was on fire. So and each week a section had to do the chores essentially on the Platoon House, and a good friend Ronnie and myself had to do the shitter, which was essentially taking the garbage bag and to the burn pile and then putting fresh ones in. The section before us, I think, only put one bag and didn't double bag it, and at the time quite a few people were sick with the runs, and we pulled the garbage bag out. It caught a splinter on the wooden box, and as you can imagine, the entire bag emptied onto me and Ronnie's legs, and that was probably the most disgusting thing I've ever been through. And then we had to get fresh bags and clean it up, so we had gloves on and we're scooping the stuff back into a fresh bag, but it was that disgusting that it sent us both into vomiting, so we're scooping up and vomit and putting it into the bag. And yeah, that goes down to being one of the worst experiences of my life, let alone just Afghanistan. Yeah.
It's quite memorable.
Well, it's still there.
Never really leaves your brain, does
No,
it?
no, and it won't. Even for you now, it'll be there forever.